Despite sharing the same name as Call of Duty 4 Modern Warfare, which was released back in 2007, this year's Modern Warfare is an entirely different game, except it's kind of not. It shares the same name, it shares one of the most iconic characters in the history of the franchise with Captain Price, and as we'll see by the end of this video, the 2019 Modern Warfare arsenal shares a lot of similarities with that of the original COD 4 arsenal. For being a soft reboot of the series with an alternative storyline, MW has a lot of roots in other Call of Duty games. More specifically, the Modern Warfare franchise, as this game is almost like a culmination of the three mashed into one game when you tear it down piece by piece. You have some elements of COD 4 in there, some elements of MW2, and also some elements of MW3, especially when you look to the weapons that we know are in the game as of right now. So today, ladies and gentlemen, we are breaking down the remastered weapons of Modern Warfare, and taking a look at where the weapons we'll have this year actually come from in the COD franchise. But before we jump into all of that, if you guys are new here, feel free to subscribe with your post notifications turned on. That way you'll always be in the loop when it comes to Call of Duty news and intel. And of course, if you enjoyed the video, let me know by dropping a like rating on it, as it would be much appreciated. And now let's get into the remastered weapons of Call of Duty Modern Warfare. Now for this one, we won't be breaking down every single weapon in MW that has a home in another COD title, but instead some of the more iconic weapons that we've all come to recognize immediately over the years, starting with the M4A1, as this was actually one of the very first weapons that we had access to in the beta a few weeks back. Without a doubt, the M4A1 in this game is one of the top contenders for best weapon overall, as it hits heavy, has pretty minimal recoil, and can be utilized effectively in all types of engagements. The M4A1 this year boasts a handful of attachments, all of which were not accessible in the beta, as come the full game, the M4A1 will not only be dubbed the M4A1, but it can also be built to mimic the M16 assault rifle as well. So this gun is essentially a 2-in-1 type of weapon, depending on the attachments you use in your loadout. For instance, the heavy-duty barrel attachment gives the weapon a more M16-like look, with the barrel appearing a lot beefier. Now, of course, the M16 was an iconic weapon back in COD 4. It was glorified as one of the best weapons in the game for its ability to get one-burst kills, and we also saw it appear in MW2 and in MW3. Likewise, the M4A1 also appeared in MW2 and MW3. However, in COD 4's multiplayer, there was no single weapon called the M4A1, and instead we had the M4 carbine, which shares a lot of similarities with it. So the M4A1 and the M16 are two weapons that we've seen multiple times in years prior, and this year really the choice is yours when customizing your M4 setup thanks to the gunsmith. Much like the M4A1, the AK-47 also offers a bit of a 2-in-1 type of deal, as the AK-47 in MW can also be transformed into the AKS-74U with the 545x39mm ammo. Now, both the AK-47 and the AK-74U were available in COD 4's multiplayer as two separate weapons, but since then they have not been available in the same Modern Warfare multiplayer mode until this year. The AK-47 also appeared in MW2 and MW3 as an iconic weapon in each game. Maybe not the most popular overall, but at the end of the day, I mean, it's the AK-47. It is one of the single most recognizable guns in the entire franchise. The gun also appeared in BO1 and Advanced Warfare as a DLC weapon. Then, oddly enough, the AK-74U ended up appearing in Black Ops 1 and Black Ops 3 as a DLC weapon post-launch, but not in any other Modern Warfare multiplayer games until now. Moving on, we've got the FR556, which actually does not share the same name as its origin weapon, that being the classic FAMAS that we first saw back in MW2. The MW2 FAMAS was, without a doubt, one of the best weapons in the entire game. It could one-burst left and right, it had next to no recoil, and was a fan favorite from the very start. Even to this day, it's still considered to be one of the best weapons in COD history. Much like this year, the MW2 FAMAS was a 3-round burst weapon, and the next time we would actually see the FAMAS was in Black Ops 1, except that time it was a fully automatic rifle, so it doesn't really connect as much with this year's FAMAS as the MW2 version did. Next up, we've got the Kilo 141, which is an assault rifle that we have yet to use in Modern Warfare, as it was unavailable during the beta. And while this is the very first time that we've seen a weapon with the name Kilo 141 appear in the franchise, this weapon appears to be awfully similar to the iconic ACR. To this day, the ACR from MW2 is one of my favorite weapons, really only falling short to that of the MW3 ACR, which performed a bit better in my own opinion. But regardless, the Kilo 141 and the MW2 ACR look very similar, especially with the standard stock equipped that we see in the gunsmith preview. So while it might not share the exact same name, the ACR has been somewhat remastered this year in the form of the Kilo 141. Following that up, we've got the FAL, or the FAL. This is another weapon that we saw first back in MW2, and I'm not gonna lie, if you had a modded controller back in MW2, the FAL was probably one of your favorite weapons to use because that thing would rip when you had like a jitter mod or a full auto mod equipped. We did also see the FAL in BO1 as the FN FAL, and here in Modern Warfare it'll be a semi-auto rifle much like its predecessors. Then, rounding out the assault rifle portion for today, we've got the FN SCAR 17S, which mirrors what we've seen before as the SCAR H in Modern Warfare 2 and also Black Ops 2, and then the SCAR L, which we saw back in MW3. And per the beta, this will actually end up being the very last AR that will unlock in the full game. And I've got a feeling that quite a few people will be grinding out levels to use this thing ASAP, just judging off the hype that the SCAR already has built up around it. Now, jumping over to the SMGs, much like the ARs, most of these are once again remastered in a sense, as we have seen quite a few of them beforehand. The MP5 is one of the very first SMGs that we got access to in the beta, and while the MP5 wasn't really anything to write home about in the past, and it was just your middle-of-the-pack SMG, in MW it was definitely the go-to SMG if you ask me. That said, we first saw the MP5 back in COD 4, then we saw it again in MW3, but in between that, we also ended up getting the MP5K in Black Ops 1. The MP7 is also an SMG that we've seen a handful of times before, as it originally debuted back in MW3, and if you were big into that game, you know just how strong this gun actually was. As someone who was always going for MOABs and high kill gameplays back in the day, the ACR and the MP7 were my two go-to weapons for that game, and the MP7 was certainly the best sub available as it had pretty much next to no recoil, a really fast TTK, and a pretty decent damage range. We then saw it again in Black Ops 2 where it was once again a very dominant SMG, but really nothing like it was in MW3. The MP7 this year, though, feels a lot like the MW3 version, and I could see it being one of the more popular choices for loadout setups, especially in overkill situations where you could end up using it as a secondary coinciding with, say, an M4 as a primary. Then we have the AUG, which is kind of an interesting SMG in this game because, much like the AK-47 and the M4A1, the AUG can transform and be a sort of class-bending weapon. It can be classified as an SMG in its standard form, but with the 5.56 NATO ammunition, it can be transformed into an assault rifle. In MW2 though, the AUG was actually neither an SMG or an AR, and it was instead a light machine gun, so this is definitely a very different twist to the AUG, but nonetheless it is a remastered weapon since we have seen it in MW2 like I said, and also in Black Ops 1 as well as an assault rifle. Another SMG that is definitely iconic in the COD franchise is that of the Uzi, which is definitely a gun that I really was never a big fan of, but there is no denying how recognizable this gun actually is. We've seen the Mini Uzi, or just the Uzi, in COD 4, MW2, and also Black Ops 1, with of course the COD 4 Mini Uzi really being the most notable out of them all. Unfortunately, we didn't have access to this gun in the beta, but I assume the Uzi this year is going to be a weapon that is really based around very close quarters combat, as it's never really had great range in general. Over in the sniper category, the main weapon that I want to look at briefly here is the Dragunov, as this is definitely not a fan favorite weapon, but regardless, it has been in a lot of COD games before. We first saw it debut back in COD 4, and since then we've seen it in Black Ops 1, MW3, and technically Advanced Warfare, although it was dubbed as the SVO in that game. The thing is, the Dragunov has always been a much less powerful sniper compared to the other weapons in the category, and typically it does end up being overlooked, but maybe its remastered form this year will get a bit more love come release. Then finally for today we have the 50GS, aka the Desert Eagle, which is by far one of the most satisfying weapons to use in Modern Warfare, thanks to its ability to get a one-shot kill to the head. The Desert Eagle honestly is up there with like the M16 and the AK-47 in terms of its reputation in the COD franchise, as we've seen it appear in COD 4, MW2, and MW3. So to see it return this year in MW, in the words of one great Kevin Malone, is only human natural. And there you guys have it. That is a handful of the remastered weapons that we will have available this year in Modern Warfare. If you guys enjoyed the video, let me know by dropping a like rating on it, as it would be much appreciated. And of course, if you are brand new here and you like what you see, feel free to subscribe with your post notifications turned on. That way you'll always stay up to date with everything going on in the world of Call of Duty. As always, be sure to use code IMMORTAL on all G Fuel, Control Freak, and Respawn products. All of those links can be found down in the description below. And once again, thanks so much for tuning in. Until next time, take it easy, have an awesome rest of your day, and I'll catch you guys later. Peace out.